Hey everybody, my name is Andres,
I'm Scott.
And I'm Abe.
and this is Between Two Stands, a show that takes a closer look at the personalities that make up the Detroit Symphony Orchestra. Today's guest is principal bassist Kevin Brown. Kevin is a native of Minnesota and began playing bass at the age of 3. He studied at Rice University where he received his bachelor's and master's degrees. Before his appointment with the DSO, Kevin played extensively as a guest with the Houston Symphony, as well as various other orchestras around the country. Kevin is also an active chamber musician and soloist, giving his first concerto with the DSO in 2015. In addition to performing, Kevin is a devoted educator. He was appointed assistant professor of double bass at Michigan State in 2017. He also shares his expertise with many other colleges around the country as a guest lecturer.
So we're really excited today because we're rolling out a brand new segment, and we got such great feedback from our live show that we did a few weeks ago when we had our guests perform music, that we are encouraging our guests this season to submit a recording to play for our audience, and then we'll talk about it a little bit about it afterwards. So please enjoy this performance by Kevin Brown.
Nice job, Kevin.
Bravo!
Nice job,
Bravo.
Kevin.
Thanks.
So, Kevin, we're gonna instead of asking what music is on your stand now, we're gonna transition to asking why you chose that piece, and what did that piece kind of mean to you?
Yeah, well, it's a waltz, kind of a combination dance and a showpiece by an early bass virtuoso named Domenico Dragonetti. He was Italian, but he lived most of his life in London. And actually, it's part of these 12 waltzes. I happen to have them here on my stand.
How
That
convenient.
looks like an excellent addition.
It's an urtext.
The Urtex, the
Yeah.
most important.
But it's actually it was the first set of solo bass pieces written, as far as I know, and as far as the editor knows. It's in the notes. But and I really like playing by myself. Especially in these quarantine times. So it's been nice to have something to work on that it's not overly technically challenging like all the transcriptions of Bach suites and stuff that we try to do on bass. And it's, they're nice, cute little fun pieces. So I've actually been assigning them to my students at MSU these past couple weeks too, to just kind of get a sense of that style. Because most of the stuff that's written for solo bass, like bass all by itself, is contemporary. And contemporary music's great too, but this kind of gives a little bit more of a complete picture in the classical style.
So that kind of brings me to a question. Like, when you chose the bass, did you, or at least like during these unprecedented times, are you finding yourself playing like more melodies by yourself and enjoying that? Or is that something you've always enjoyed doing on the bass? Because you don't usually have like the more melodic lines like the violins or some of the winds, or maybe even cellos. So like, what drew you to the bass originally? And I'm just curious about that.
Well, I started playing bass when I was 3. And so I don't really remember my thought process exactly.
So you couldn't
Did you
have
have a full-size cello then?
Yeah, it was it like a violin that's turned over on its side, or like, like how do you start playing bass when you're 3?
The logistics are complicated. There was actually a viola da gamba with different strings. So viola da gamba is like a roughly cello-sized instrument that people don't really play that much anymore. Many people do.
So they've been repurposed, right?
It was repurposed. But apparently, my mom she's a bass player too. So I've been hearing all the excerpts since I was in the womb. But also, it was something that apparently, like, I made that choice that my older sibling played cello. So we didn't want to have that kind of competition going on. And we were kind of a low register family. Like my dad played tuba, mom played bass. So my mom kind of wanted me to play viola, but apparently I said no as a 3.
Way too high.
Yeah.
And if you would have asked to play piccolo, you would have been like banished from the Brown family, huh?
Yeah, never would have worked.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been that's one of the things that's been hard this past several months, is that we don't, not being able to be a part of the foundation of the sound. Which, when I was a kid, it wasn't like I wanted to. It wasn't like I was thinking, oh, I really have to play in an orchestra. It was like I was playing bass and it was fun, Yeah. Most of what I worked on as a kid was solo stuff, because that's what you do when you're younger, or at least what I did. So, I have always liked playing more melodic stuff and enjoyed playing solos. So that's been sort of nice to work on in this time a little bit, but I really miss being a part of like that big sound and being at the foundation of it.
Yeah. It is kind of nice to have this time to definitely focus on other aspects, because like there's so many aspects of performing, and I mean, how often would you have time to work on those Dragonetti, pieces? Like you're probably working on the next week of repertoire, so it's probably kind of nice to do that every now and then.
Totally. It's it's been there are lots of challenges about the lockdown and all those kinds of things, but it has been nice to have a little bit of extra space. Just have a little extra space in the schedule. We're playing once every other week-ish right now, each of us. So just having a little bit of space to be able to focus on other things musically and non-musically.
Yeah.
Well, that actually brings me to a question, like, for everybody, like, what have you been able to practice? Because, so much of what we do is just keeping our skills for the next concert, or working around that to make sure that we touch on the skills that aren't emphasized in that week's program, and making sure that our playing's in general better. But now there's a lot more of our preference for what we'd like to work on. And I was just wondering, like, how each of you is dealing with that. Kevin, you've already touched on it a little bit, but I'd like to hear Andres and Abe, like, what have y'all been doing since there's less of that structure?
Musically, or
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, fishing counts.
This is a music show, right? Yeah, I think we talked about it, but I've just been trying to explore like different types of music, not just like classical, not, I mean, not that I haven't been listening or playing classical, but just like, exploring different types of music, that now we have a little bit of time to explore, and I think, in my opinion, all music, if you get to know all music, it makes you a better musician. So, it's been kind of nice to have that time to do that.
Yeah, you've been getting into more jazz lately, right?
Yeah, I've been trying to do that a little bit more. It's a huge, it's a wormhole, man. I mean, like, I have so much respect for the jazz musicians, people who have that theory down. But man, it's really fun, but it's there's a lot. It's a lot to learn. So definitely at the peak, at the valley, wherever. I'm at the beginning, but
somewhere in between those two things.
I'm at the beginning of this. Let's just say, but I'm enjoying it for sure. Yeah. What about you, Abe?
So I've had kind of an interesting mix of things. So part of my quarantine, I got to spend a lot more time with my son, and which has been amazing. And so with that, I've been exploring the works of Raffi. And great composer. Because my mom decided that, when she visited one time, she put on Raffi, and so Sam fell in love with it, and so now we're exploring all the works, and currently we're really into Banana Phone. So it's
dude, I listened to Raffi as a kid, and look how I turned out, man.
Right.
Oh no.
Exactly.
Oh
no. From a cello perspective, though, I did a lot of sort of reviewing, Bach suites as a staple of the repertoire. I also, as Kevin's been doing, I explored some solo works that I had either not played or played before. And then, just as I felt like I needed to work on something, maybe I'd pull out a concerto that I hadn't played in a while or something like that. So it's been an interesting mix, but a lot of Raffi listening for sure.
Yeah, I mean, lots of genres.
Right. Yeah. So Kevin, we mentioned quarantine a little bit, and we wanted to ask you what the top 3 things you've done during quarantine, and the top 3 things that you've missed during quarantine.
Yeah, well, there's a lot there. Quarantine just has gone on for so long. It's like there have been these huge phases. One of the, I guess you said the best thing. I think one of the best things that I've done is something that actually the 4 of us all did together, which is this innovation committee that where we, the 4 of us and a few other colleagues, got together and worked with the management to try to create a new way for the DSO to be in this time. We're used to being a live performing arts in-person organization, and fortunately we have webcast infrastructure and stuff like that. But things like this show, and we did the DSO Summer Institute, came out of that too. Just a lot of a lot of the great stuff came out of that. So I'm really proud of the work that we did there. And
yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
That was unique.
You were also a really great leader in that role for the innovation committee. Like it was really nice to have you kind of paving the way for everything to happen. So
you were the email writer and
kind of bringing us in and focusing too.
I was the person with a Zoom account that could invite the whole orchestra to meetings. So
yeah.
Sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah. I feel like everyone kind of passed emails around like hot potato, and then when it got to you, you're like, okay, I'll answer it. We need someone like that.
Yeah, no, it could be interesting on committees and stuff. But anyway, so that's one thing that was really nice. that we all did. But yeah, outside of that, it was nice I had a trip up north. I had a sibling who was coming to town, whose car broke down up in the UP on the way here. And so we had I had to go up there. And,
oh no!
Vacation.
Were they driving from like through the top, like through Wisconsin that way? Is that kind of what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we stayed in. I can't even really tell you exactly what. We stayed in a place called the Nema Inn that had a great fish sandwich, but I'll probably never be in that tiny town again.
Yeah.
But we stayed up there and kind of just bounced around, did a couple Airbnb things, tried to stay socially distant from people, and it's a little bit easier with all that space up there. But that was
we could get some sponsorship if we plug the Nema Inn. Nema Inn, great fish sandwich. Go ahead and
yeah, send us fish sandwiches, please.
Seriously though, you got to have that fish sandwich if you're ever up there.
Yeah.
One more plug.
What was the name of it again?
Nema Inn. Okay.
But anyway, so a cool. I think we all realized like a couple days ago that all four of us went to Rice University at different times. But kind of fun fact. And now, Kevin, you're teaching at MSU, and we kind of wanted to know how that's been challenging for you. I mean, you started a few years ago, in person, obviously, and now it's kind of been online. How has that been challenging for you, and maybe for your students during this time?
Yeah, I mean, it's been challenging. It's the entire time that I've been teaching at MSU, we've been building this new part of the building, has been this expansion, and it's been right next to my studio. There's been like a jackhammer going and stuff like that. And guess what? It was scheduled to open in like April of this year. So it's it's open now, and we're all like, can't use that anymore. But anyway, so that's kind of a funny thing. But yeah, it's been challenging. It's one of the interesting things about this time is how much innovation has been going on and how much creativity we've all needed to use to do whatever we have been doing, So there I really feel for the students who went to college or were going to go to college, and then all of a sudden they're back home, and then we've kind of been on this, well, how long is this going to last? What, are we coming back in person? It's been this sort of limbo all along. So that's been, a challenge, I think just kind of psychologically and emotionally for people. As far as like the actual teaching goes, there are some like great things that you can do online. You can do what I've found is if they send me a recording, and then I can spend a lot of time reviewing and listening to the recording and like really identify their fingerings and really and make some demonstration tapes that are sort of concise in a way that an in-person lesson, it doesn't happen that way. In an in-person lesson, it's a little bit more of a snapshot. It also takes an extra hour to do that, but which has been kind of a challenge for me. But there are some things that you can really do well online. But I think we all just miss hearing each other's sounds, hearing the fullness of the sound in the same way that, you miss that in the space at Orchestra Hall or something like that, just to really be able to work on sound, and working on, the performance majors who you're not really performing. It's like we have to kind of take another, perspective in order for it to be productive.
Kevin, did you used to? Sorry. Oh, sorry. Did you used to have studio class in person too?
We did, and actually, that was what I was just about to say. Is that I couldn't really figure out how to do. No, that was perfect. I couldn't really figure out what to do with studio class, or for just a couple of weeks, we just didn't do it because I was like, I don't know if I want to have people like playing live into this thing or like sending a recording that they might as well just be. It was just kind of confusing to me. But yeah, so what we ended up doing was this. We had a book club. So people would in like 3 sessions we read The Inner Game of Tennis, and applied it to.
That's a great idea, man. That's a really great idea.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
And
And by the way, studio class, just for people who don't know, that's like when like the basis in the school, or all the instruments of that instrument, all the majors of that instrument come together and like either play for each other or like have guest artists come in and share their mastery. So that's kind of like, just in case, because people don't know what studio class is. But yeah, that's a great idea, man, because like there needs to be more of that. Actually, Scott and I were talking about how there should be more like of the psychological component to learning and being in school, because it's half the battle or more.
Right. Yeah, it's just like such an individual stress, or such a unique stress to the kinds of to the work environment that we're either preparing students for or that we're in ourselves. And so like it's the ability to understand people and the situation that
and how they respond to it, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's what the Inner Game of Tennis is like, one of those books that's kind of got that similar approach. It's really
That was
really
definitely
great.
Life-changing for me. It was just a eye-opening perspective,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Kevin, you are like we're friends, which is awesome. But one of the things that like I appreciate,
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
rep the brand. So one of the things that I definitely appreciate about what we do is like there seems to be an enthusiasm for the city that we live in, and like so I'm wondering if you had like any Detroit specific things, and maybe to go even deeper into this, you used to work at a pizza shop far in the past. Detroit has its own Detroit style pizza. So if you were going to do like a Detroit pizza tour, what would you do as the expert that you are?
Well, I don't know. I used to work at a place called Basil's Pizza. I worked there, when I was in high school, and then they took me back every summer. I would go and work there. It was really a big part of my life.
Send us some pizza. Yeah. Send us some pizza, Basil's.
There's no pizza like that here. It was Greek, a Greek-owned business and a family business, and there isn't, it's like this thin crust with this. It's not, I guess it's. I like there's thin crust pizza in places, but square cut thin crust pizza. I haven't really found anything like that here. But if I were going to take someone on a pizza tour in Detroit, I'd probably start with Michigan and Trumbull.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, dude.
It's just really good.
It's the best. It's the best.
Yeah.
It's really good.
It's so good. The crust is just on point.
Yeah. And, there are lots of Detroit-style pizza places around here that if we were going to do a comprehensive, taste or whatever, you could go to Buddy's or all those kinds of things, too. Buddy's is good. I like Buddy's, too. But Michigan and Trumbull kind of I like a little bit better.
Yeah.
Supino's is my other sort of favorite spot here. But again, that's kind of more of a New York style crust.
But it's nice to have that variety.
Yeah, it is. What about one more? Like if you had like just like to get like a good array of places.
Well rounded, yeah. You got me stumped. I'm trying to think of another like a third spot that would be. I don't know. Do you have one? Do you have one in mind?
Personally, I don't know if you guys have been to this place, but it's called Pizzaplex. It's like
I have not been there.
It's a Neapolitan style, and it's like
is that in Mexican
Southwest? Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Southwest Detroit.
And it's good, and I feel like that would be like the perfect trifecta. Like you got the Detroit style, you got the New York style, and this is like the Italian, Neapolitan style. Ooh, we got to go there. The four of us do some research.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Research must be done. Yes.
But Anyway, and Kevin, so you're going to be playing. You're playing on the Trout, Schubert's Trout?
Yeah, I'm doing Trout, and Beethoven 7 or Septet is coming up too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And you might not be playing Soldier's Tale, but that's coming up too, which has bass. But we were talking about how it's not normally featured. It's normally kind of like support. So like, how is that kind of different in these pieces? What are some challenges in playing a more prominent role as a bass player?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's been interesting. Since we started up again a couple weeks ago at the DSO, I've actually played more stuff as a solo, like as a one on a part basis than with other people. I mean, we've done a couple pieces with our new member Brandon was playing with me, but we're on a stand far apart. But yeah, at least half of the stuff has been this Brandenburg Concerto and stuff like that has been one on a part. And usually it doesn't function that differently. Like the bass still provides kind of a sort of supportive foundation at the bottom of the sound, often doubling the cello, so just an octave lower to give a little extra support, because Abe needs it.
Yeah, Abe needs that. Abe needs that support.
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate it.
Of course.
I'll be able to hug myself.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I mean, so I'd say that the biggest difference is just that, like, instead of being, that usually when I'm playing with the full section, I'm more focused on like the complete output of all the, of all 7 of us or however many. Whereas, this is like, well, your sound is the sound of the bass that's happening, which is, it's a subtle thing, but like, in terms of, you still want to like sound great and sound how you want the bass line to sound when you're playing in a big group. But, there's just something different about trying to like play in a way that leads others to play the same line with you versus a way contribute the complete bass line, for the ensemble. Does that make sense?
You froze there for a second, but I think we got it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, those are some of my favorite pieces personally. So it's like, it's really cool to hear the bass, as a, I know it's not like necessarily like a solo or like a, I mean, it is solo, but it's just kind of cool to hear it like one on a part, because you don't hear that often.
Well, especially in the general symphonic calendar, right? We're not usually playing chamber music like this. So it's really nice to, I mean, not just you, Kevin, but also some of our other colleagues to hear, sort of the different ways that we can adapt and be flexible to the current situation.
I'm going to totally be shameless here and just plug all this chamber music that we're performing too. Like, this isn't normally what we get to do at this level with each other in this structured way. And the fact that we have this opportunity, I think, is really worth listening to and paying attention to, because it's rep that you just don't often hear from the like symphony orchestra musicians. And so it's a lot of fun to play, at least in my experience. And I'm looking forward to doing more of it, and hopefully it can continue even when we aren't forced to do such small numbers. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah.
It's Kevin.
It's just
go ahead.
You froze again.
no, like it's no. Am I back?
You're back.
Yeah.
You're back.
Okay. I just think it's like a cool thing that we get to be a part of this time. It's like that we get to play chamber music, and we're set up to do it. And the playing at a distance and stuff like that is, while it's logistically challenging, to hear people and stuff like that.
Uh-oh.
It's just great to have Scott all the way in the back behind those plexiglass shields.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where I belong.
It's just interesting to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So one other thing, since you mentioned being in the back, I wanted to say, like, you are the only string principal that isn't like right up close to the conductor And I was just wondering, like, do you feel a little left out when everybody gets a handshake? I mean, when we can shake hands and touch each other, and then they just kind of like wave.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm like, oh yeah, you're back there too.
Yeah, well, I mean, some conductors will walk up and like shake hands or whatever, but no, honestly, I think that the those are kind of left out of the what's going on back there. It's like we have it's like I like where I sit because I can really see almost everyone. It's like on our side, it's like I can really see the orchestra except for the low brass. Is a little bit out of my view.
Which is probably okay.
You're not missing much. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding, everybody.
Right, I like it. Kind of, it's like a halfway string, halfway brass sort of, and or halfway winds. I feel like I'm a part of a lot of different sections as the bass because we're kind of experience in the orchestra and switching functions and
we've certainly are in perfect line with each other, so we've shared some funny eye shot moments when things go awry, that's for sure.
Keeping a straight face when I make eye contact with Andres.
Yeah.
That's a challenge for everybody, I think.
Yeah. Even when we're not playing, it's just funny looking. But well, hey Kevin, thank you so much for joining us, man. It was really, really great talking to you. Thanks for being our first guest of the second season here.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
Yeah.
Right.
Thanks, Kevin.
And before we go, we're gonna hear from our DSO superfan Jim Farber. So stay tuned for that. Welcome, Jim. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Jim.
Thanks for being here.
So many reasons why we picked Jim to be on the show is because the following. Jim and his wife Margot became subscribers of the DSO in 1987. He's on the board of trustees. He's been involved with the volunteer leadership in 2011. He's a subscriber to the Pops concerts. He goes to 4 to 6 classical concerts a year, which is a good point that we might touch on later. Season ticket. In addition to the DSO, he is a season ticket holder to the Red Wings, Tigers, Lions. He's involved in a nonprofit called Guitars Not Guns, which uses music to help people turn their lives around. So he's just very much a Detroit guy. So Jim, welcome. Thank you so much for being here, man.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me, guys.
So
to start us off, can you tell us a little bit of your history with the DSO and just get us caught up? You said like Andres said, you started as a subscriber in '87. Tell us a little bit what that was like, and then how we got to know you so well, and you got to know us so well.
Oh, that sounds good. So when my wife and I came to Detroit in 1987, we became subscribers, and what was interesting about it was, we always went. We took our kids to the holiday show every year. When my parents would come to town, we'd take them to a show. And as kids came along, it got harder and harder to go out and do things. But we always did our DSO show, and that was our big night out. And during that time, there was a guy named Eric Kunzel who was, always directed the pop shows, and he just really engaged us. He would tell great stories about the music. It was the kind of music that at the time was just what we really liked. And so then the kids, they grow up, and then you decide, what are you going to do with your life? And I thought, I'd like to get involved with the volunteer leadership, because in the fall of 2010, I looked back on my time in Detroit from '87 to 2010, and I realized there was literally only one constant, and that was the DSO. And this concept of the governing members was introduced to me by Art O'Reilly, and I just loved it. I thought, wow, give people an opportunity to not just have ownership through the checks they write, but authorship, right? I could get involved, and great example, a musically infused grilled cheese pub crawl. Whoever thought the DSO would do that? And whoever thought that Andreas
I love
would be
that.
one of the participants?
I love
Who
that.
doesn't want to do that? Like, I'm in.
Yeah.
And that's what I said. The more educated you are on the subject matter, and the more you become a subject matter expert, the more you can enjoy it. How many of you have gone to Napa Valley and done a tour of the wineries? All of a sudden, the wine tastes way better. And all of a sudden, you become a little bit of a wine snob,
Yeah.
But the beauty of the DSO was, by getting that education, and specifically one of the goals of the governing members was, meet the musicians. I had 7 Detroit Symphony Orchestra musicians play in my house one night. You can go on YouTube and see some of it. It was I got to sing with them. I mean, very, very cool. But the educational process. So I listen to more classical music now because I see the influence of classical music in the music I love. Bruce Springsteen, if you follow him, he recently had a movie.
Who?
Bruce Springsteen. He's from New Jersey. And, the musicians from the New Jersey Symphony Orchestra performed on the album. The DSO doesn't just mean you have to be able to walk into a classical concert and deconstruct every single note and song you hear. One of your colleagues said to me one time, I said, how do you know if these musicians are good? How do you know if they're good? Like, I go into a bar at 1 a.m. and I catch the last couple songs of a local garage band, and I have a great time. How do I know if they're good? And the answer was, if you like it, they're good. And I thought that was pretty interesting, and not at all the answer I expected, not at all the answer I think society would expect, right? Music is designed to take you places that maybe you can't go on your own. And if it's a guy sitting in his office playing recorder, or if it's a DSO doing what you guys do really well, as long as it takes you where you need to go. You guys remember Hot Sardines?
Yeah.
They came to the Cube, and the most recent show, I'm again talking about having some authorship. I actually made that show happen because they were supposed to play in Ann Arbor, and there was a scheduling conflict. And I called Chris, who heads up all our jazz stuff, and I said, hey, Hot Sardines have an open night. Get them to Detroit, And then Chris was Harrington was kind enough to let me introduce the band. Well, I'm that much more excited about the DSO when I can tell my friends, hey, come to this show. And then, before the show starts, Chris Harrington says, by the way, Jim Farber is going to introduce it. So, I mean, right. It's more than just music at the DSO, the great line. It's a family. It really is an experience. Just like, can you tell me the score of the last football game you went to? And most people will say no, but they'll tell you a story about something stupid somebody did at the tailgate party. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
It's the human interaction.
In one of the committees that I serve on at the orchestra, we got into this discussion about how a new audience member might not understand the protocols of a concert, like when you clap and when you don't clap, right? And for me, I think it's more important that somebody enjoys what they're hearing, and if they feel like clapping, they should clap.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's going to turn away an audience member or audience members, then it's not worth, not allowing somebody to clap after a movement's over.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I totally agree with that sentiment that if you enjoy it, then we've done our job.
Yeah. That's a good example. Yeah.
I think there's a couple really key points about Bruce Springsteen. So growing up in New Jersey, it is interesting that the rest of the country didn't know about Bruce Springsteen to the extent that people from New Jersey did. So when I'm a kid, not old enough to go to the bars, but my sister's coming back from the shore, and you hear about this guy, he's got these 2 albums out, critically acclaimed, but they didn't sell a lot of records. But everyone said, you got to see Bruce live. You go see him once and you will walk out a believer, right? And that truly is the case. I mean, the energy, the storytelling, the connection with his fans. When I got to Michigan, the very first show on the River Tour, which was the album he released in 1980, it's in Chrysler Arena, Ann Arbor, Michigan. And he introduces Bob Seger for the final encore. And the place went nuts. I mean, clearly Bob Seger is to Detroit what Bruce Springsteen was to New Jersey. But a lot of people in 1980 that I met didn't know Bruce Springsteen, and he had, released his first record in 73. But it was really cool to, be following someone. It was sort of like if you could say you saw the Beatles, at the Star Club, or if you saw them in Liverpool early on. And that was really exciting. And I either love something or hate it. There is no middle ground, right? I don't take maybe for an answer, and then, but so am I the biggest fan? No, I always say to people, I'm as big or a bigger fan than probably 99% of the people. But there are people out there who have made it their lives to just follow Bruce Springsteen the way a Grateful Dead fan follows the Dead, right? The way a Fish fan follows Fish. And all these bands are great, and that's what makes them great. And DSO has fans like that. I mean, Dick and Gwen, you know what their license plate on their car is?
Yeah.
DSO fan.
Yeah.
I mean, how cool is that?
We're going to have to get them on here soon, too, I think.
Absolutely.
Shout out to the
So as far as, the Fun Bruce stuff, my phone rings, I kid you not, once a month, and someone will say, I was in my car and I heard Bruce Springsteen on the radio. I immediately thought of you. I'm like, if I ever monetized this, if I ever went to Bruce and said, I want some of the royalties on every album, everybody's fucked because of me.
Yeah.
I mean, it is kind of funny, but it's like, well, what do you think of me? I mean, there's people, but that's okay. I mean, that's fine, because I think that's what makes something like that fun. But a funny story that ties back to the DSO is since, I don't know how long it's been going on. It's about 13, 14 years. There's a guy from Michigan, actually, Bob Woodruff. He was a reporter with ABC. And I think he started with them in 2005, 2006, January, I think it was early 2006. He went to Iraq, and he was in a horrible, a war-related event. And he was in a medically induced coma for a month or so. And when he came out of it, long story short, he created the Bob Woodruff Foundation. And every year since about, 13 years ago or whatever, they started doing, during New York City's Comedy Week, an event called Stand Up for Heroes. And I saw guys like Jon Stewart and John Oliver, and Robin Williams was at that. Every comedian you can think of. This was big time stuff. And all but one year, the musical guest was Bruce Springsteen. And he would come out, and he'd play a few songs, and then he would auction off his guitar. And one year, the auction got to $300,000, and two people had each bid $300,000. He had thrown in dinner cooked by his mom. His mom's Italian, and pasta meal, but and he said, I can't take anymore. He said $600,000 to the Bob Woodruff Foundation. That's tremendous. So they each got a guitar, and life went on, right? So keep in mind now, just put a pin in this. That's November-ish of that particular year.
Okay.
Well, it's funny because there's this Bruce song where he talks about waking up on Christmas morning, and there's a brand new guitar under the Christmas tree. Well, I wake up that Christmas, and there's a guitar under the Christmas tree, and it's signed by Bruce Springsteen. And I'm like, I turned to my wife and I said, wow, your boyfriend must be wealthy, because $300,000? I know you love me, baby, but come on. But here's the story. There's a governing member at the DSO named Don Levine. And Don and Margot worked at the DMC. He's an infectious disease doctor. And Margot gets a call. Again, why Margot, right? Because she's a huge Springsteen fan as well. That's probably why we ended up married. No, I'd go up to her apartment and listen to all the bootlegs that she had. She had the best Springsteen bootlegs. So Don says, hey, Margot, I know you're a Bruce Springsteen fan. Funny story here. He was doing something with Hillel at Michigan State University. And apparently somebody must have thought that Springsteen was Jewish. The surname is actually Dutch. And Bruce is really, the Italian on his mother's side is really his connection. I was at a concert in Milan where, the guy next to me was hugging me and crying, and we were singing together, and he was thanking me for bringing in Bruce Springsteen. I'm like, again, I personally didn't do it. But anyway, Don
Are you
said,
are you sure we should go to one of these concerts? That sounds a little...
It was...
I'm just kidding.
in Milan, he has a connection with San Siro that is phenomenal. But anyway, so Don says, listen, Margot, for this silent auction they were doing to raise money for Hillel at Michigan State University, they bought an autographed Bruce Springsteen guitar. And it was like the last day of the auction, and nobody had bid on it. And again, I contend that they thought, well, this Jewish guy, somebody's going to, supporting a Jewish organization. So my wife puts in the opening bid, and it literally she gets a call or an email like the next day. Congratulations, you've won. The bid was less than the value of that guitar if I walked into a music store and
Oh
bought
my
the guitar.
God, that's insane.
And so in my living room hangs the autographed Bruce Springsteen guitar. And when I sell my house, by the way, everything stays except my Toots Shores, paraphernalia and the Bruce Springsteen guitar.
One of the things I really love about it is the absolute passion. You said you either love it or you hate it. And it's so obvious the things that you love because you're involved and you constantly do that. And that's one of the things I really like about music in general. Whenever we're talking to our patrons, and you can come up to, like, as far as being accessible, you can come up to us and say, that Beethoven symphony you just played, I really hated it. And I'm going to be very interested in why.
Right.
because I have this experience, but like that kind of passion is something that I've always been so interested in, and you have it for music in general, and obviously for Springsteen especially. And we're happy to be kicking off our first Pops show of the year this week. So I just can't tell you how great it is to have a fan like you, a friend like you, and somebody involved like you are. Like, it's really nice to be able to have this conversation.
Yeah, and your whole family, for that matter. Your whole family, Margot. Ellie's now like a ambassador of the DSO, the next generation. So thank all you guys. You guys are the best. So
from our perspective, it's enriching. And that's what you want when you spend time and engage with something. So we absolutely appreciate it as well.
Well, thank you, man. And thanks for being on the show. And I look forward to seeing you in person, man.
Yeah, that will be a great day.
Yeah. Be well, Jim. Talk to you soon.
All right, talk to you soon.
Take care, guys.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for watching today's episode. We really appreciate your support of the DSO during these unprecedented times. Here are next week's DSO digital concerts. And to hear new live music each week, please visit dso.org. Thank you.